Morning. Uh, what I'm doing in this video is, uh, in front of me I have student writing. I have a script written by student. It is a script from internal examination that I took from. My students took long ago. And what I'm doing is, as an examiner, I'm looking at this script and recording my instant responses and reactions as an examiner. The purpose of doing so is preparing a database or document about students' writings and how examiners or teachers respond to them. So that we understand student writing better, and I hope if other students watch this kind of content, they will have a much better idea about how other students like them write, and what impact the writing has on the examiner or teacher, and how teachers mark and score their answer sheets. So I haven't looked at the script. It's on the desk here. Let me look and then write my response, document my response, record my response. So I see that the student has clear handwriting, legible handwriting. That's a good thing, because in most cases when I take students' scripts in my hand, not always, but often it happens that as I look on the cover page, I see quite illegible writing, and this gives a very bad visual impression. So this answer sheet or this writing, as I said, belongs to internal examination, and it belongs to higher level at the university. I won't tell other things about this script. I do not want to reveal the privacy of the student without breaching the law, without breaching confidentiality, without breaching other restrictions on me as a teacher. I want to record this response. So let me turn the first page. The good thing I see in this answer sheet as I open the page is that the student has used a scale and pencil, and it has drawn line on both right and left hand side of the paper, but the margin the student has left is only 1/4 of an inch. You should leave, if a student watching this video, you should leave at least half an inch of the margin on both sides. The student gives the group name. For example, he writes group A. I don't know, it might be he or she. Sorry, I'm using he, don't take it otherwise. And he writes in group A, for example. Let me write here on the whiteboard. A, and then it puts that in a box. That's a good thing, because the examiner can clearly understand which assignment or which question the student is responding to. I have the assignment paper here, and now I can clearly understand which question he or she is attempting. Many times we find that students do not clearly write which questions they are trying to answer, and this really irritates the examiner. Then below that he writes Q and 1 and gives another box. That's also a good thing. There's a hyphen. When I was a student, or even today when I'm a student, I write like this. answer to question number 1. From group A. I write like this. There are styles of writing. Then I'll let me read the answer with the pen. I'm going to mark it. I won't read it aloud because this will this might disclose what I should keep confidential. So what I find is that it's very easy to read because each letter is correctly formed, well formed. The student has good wide space between words. There is very good balance of wide space and writing. Another good thing I see is that the student uses list. For example, he gives a heading and then writes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like that. That's a good thing. So let me read. I'm reading silently. Before I move, I want to respond. What I see in the very first sentence, what strikes me, you may disagree with me or you may not like this idea. I find a language problem, and my habit is that when I see a language slip in students' writing, I feel uncomfortable. I stop because I expect that the students should write flawlessly or correctly and should not commit errors and mistakes. For example, here is a preposition related error. Then in the second sentence we have an awkward construction, particularly the student doesn't know where and how to use a relative pronoun like where. Again, in the third sentence, the student uses a preposition incorrectly. If I see the question, the question has 3 sentences, and the second sentence begins with what. So if a question begins with what, the examiner is asking to supply definition, right? And this student spends one complete paragraph giving background before he can start the answer. And I have the opinion that the student should not spend so much time and energy to give the background to the question. Rather, the students should directly begin to focus on the question and answer to the point. Let me read. I see that this student has read, he has good knowledge about the topic being asked, and he is giving to the point specific objective answers. In the third paragraph, I find a language related problem. For example, this student doesn't know when and where to use a definite article properly. Now, another issue I see is there is an issue of subject and verb agreement. So, if you're watching my video, do you see that as an examiner, as a teacher, my focus is on language. I don't know how is the case with other examiners, other teachers. I never have any chance to learn about how other teachers examine student writings. Almost no idea. But in my case, I realize that my tendency is to focus more on language related issues. If there's a language issue, it easily gets noticed. So as I said, there is a subject and verb agreement problem. The student writes exactly the same sentence 2 times consecutively. Students often do this, and I don't understand why do they do this. They'll write a sentence, and then just next to the sentence, they will repeat the sentence as he's doing here. So as I read this paragraph, the major language related problem I see in this paragraph is the problem of subject and verb agreement. And there is another remarkable thing that is about punctuation. Interestingly, this student doesn't know where to put a period mark or full stop. He does not know. And he puts a full stop anywhere, not where the sentence ends. He puts a full stop even in the middle of a sentence. And this is surprising to find that a student at, let's say, university level doesn't know where and how to use a full stop. But if I evaluate this paragraph from subject matter, it's not very bad, but I'll say it's below average. Now, for example, in second paragraph, I see that the student writes phrase incomplete. He is missing a key word in the phrase. I wish I could read out these words, then my recording, my documentation will be more effective. But I'm afraid that if I read out these words, I might inadvertently disclose the identity of this script, which might go against the law. Okay. Now I see that this student also does not know where and how to use a comma correctly. He inserts a comma where it is not needed because there is no pause. In one sentence, he writes an adjective where he should write a noun. For example, he should write reality, but he writes real. Again, in the next paragraph, I see the problem of subject and verb agreement. There is a preposition missing off. Look, he writes another, then he puts a comma where it is not necessary. And when you use another, I guess it's denominator. When you use another, then the next noun you use after another should be singular, but he uses a plural noun after another. Now he defines a term related to a question, and his definition is incorrect. Now I see an awkward construction or inappropriate use of a verb. Now here I see another language related problem. The student doesn't write appropriate or correct form of the word. Again, the same problem, he writes incorrect word. Subject verb agreement issue. He should write he should use the sign of apostrophe, and he does not. Again, subject verb agreement issue. He writes an adjective where he should write a noun. Again, subject verb agreement issue. Again, subject verb agreement issue. A definite article is missing. Inappropriate use of definite article. He writes a noun where he should write adjective. Look, he writes weak and known. After a modal, he should use base verb, like he should say weak and know, but he writes weak and known. Again, uses a verb occur. He should write that occur, and just write just occur. In another sentence, he should use a sign of apostrophe, but it doesn't. Okay, I've done reading this complete answer. Let me once again go back to the question. So this question, second part, has a sentence beginning with what, and the examiner is asking about some kind of principle or some kind of theory, and the student has tried to explain the principle or theory. Then in the second part of the question, or let's say the third part of the question, there is a question that requires the student to give a creative answer. For example, it says, what happens when something happens? What happens if this thing happens? Right? And the question says, illustrate with example. Give example. Now, the student does not give examples. And the student does not answer this last part of the question, which actually requires the student to apply the principle or theory. The first part of the question is asking the student to reproduce the theory, and the last part of the question is asking the student to apply the principle or theory and show with examples. And the student is able to reproduce the theory by memorizing, I guess. But when it comes to applying the theory and showing how the theory functions, the student has written nothing. So this, do you see, now this student can't get better grades because this answer is just half complete. The other half is missing. The important later half is missing. Definition is given, but the application of the principle or theory is missing. This question carries 12 marks. So in a sense, let's say when we have such questions, so let me say that how do we evaluate? We have a guideline, no doubt, and we have internalized how we mark and evaluate, but we look for, let's say, fluency of language in your writing. We look for subject matter in your writing, and we look for format or organization in your writing, because your exam is your answer is an exam essay. Understand that your answer you write in the examination is exam essay, and as an examinee, you should have good idea, good knowledge about how to write an exam essay. So I again say I focus on three things. For me, by habit, language comes first. If your writing has poor language, if it has weaker command of language, if there are flaws and errors in writing, it strikes my attention and I get demotivated to give you better grades. And then subject matter. For example, this question has three parts. The first part of the question just gives the context of the question. There is no question, just context. In the second part, there is a what question. The examiner wants you to recall and define something. The third part is asking what happens if this thing happens, right? So the third part is requiring you to visualize application of the theory, and the student has not answered this third part, and this shows that the student, I guess, has not properly understood the theory. If the student has properly understood the theory or principle, he would be able to apply them. Now this raises a lot of questions, like for example, how did the teacher teach in class? How do I teach in class? Did I explain this thing to student? Did I make the student apply this principle in class? Or did I lecture in class and just presented the definition? So this output in the internal examination raises questions about input. And if we want to learn about teaching from student writing, we need to go back to the classroom and reflect on how we taught it. So do you see how much time it takes to grade your answer sheets? Maybe it took me 20-minute time, I guess, to almost 24-minute time to finish reading one answer. Now let me grade it. I won't tell what grade I'm giving, but let me grade it and I'll talk about it. Okay, I graded this answer as somewhere around B. Now, if I was strict, I might have graded this minus B. But because I want to be liberal, I do not want to penalize the student, so somewhere in the corner of my heart, I have a sense that uh, this student also has hopes and dreams in life. So I become liberal, and my grades are a bit flattering. My grades are a bit, what do I say, stressed. Or I don't know if I use the right word. Okay. So before I move on to reading the second question, I'll pause this video because I want to make the videos, if possible, not longer than 30 minutes. If somebody wants to watch, it might be easier for them to watch it. So thank you for watching. The purpose of such video is primarily understanding students writing myself, and the purpose of recording is creating a document so that we can do a study of such things, because I see that at the university student writings are treated as something confidential, and I normally do not see any discussion or any research or any analysis of students writing at higher level. We mark them confidentially and we publish results, but we never openly publicly talk about this their writing, because people say this is illegal, unethical. I hope I haven't breached any ethics because I haven't disclosed anything. I said these are the scripts of internal examination that my students took some time ago at a university. Thank you for watching. If you like such content, and if you want to watch more of such content, please do subscribe my channel. It will encourage me to create more content related to higher education, because my interest lies in teaching, learning, and higher education. Thank you.